Greetings, everyone. Rajee Narinesingh here, transgender activist, author, mystic, actress, reality TV personality, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm a lot of things, y'all. So I'm coming to you from my very humble home here in South Florida, USA. And the transgender community has gone through so much discrimination and injustice. I am certainly not an exception to that. I have my stories, honey. Oh my God, the things I've been through. Thankfully, in recent years, things have gotten better for trans people here in America, but we still have a long way to go. And I think about the trans people around the world that every day it's a matter of life and death just because of who they are. I don't forget my fallen sisters. My goodness, we stand on your shoulders and we continue the fight for equality and equity for our community. There's a particular story I want to share with you as a trans woman. And I've been brutally beaten up. I've gone through all sorts of discrimination. But one of the areas that trans people deal with discrimination in is employment. It's a very high rate of employment discrimination in our community. So there was a company that I worked with a few years ago. Well, more than a few years ago, but some years ago. This was back in like 2004, called PRC, Precision Response Corporation. And I was working for the American Express account. Like a lot of times these big companies, they outsource the work. And so we were a call center for American Express. So anyway, I had just that year been laid off. And me, honey, I have worked all my life. Oh my God, in some form or fashion since my teens. I had part-time jobs when I was in school during the summer, and then as soon as I got out of high school at 18, I started working, and I've done all sorts of things. I was with American Red Cross for 10 years, just about almost 10 years, doing humanitarian work through them. But as time went on, my transgenderism came out more and more. And the more that it came out on the physical, it became harder for me to maneuver through corporate America and to work. So I went for a job. I was, applying at different places. By this time, I'm very trans looking, not as voluptuous as I am now. But definitely a transgender woman at that point. And so I went into the human resource department, and you had to take two tests. I took both tests, and I passed. And so if you passed the test, then you would be given an interview with one of the personnel people there. So I was told that I would be given a call in about a week to come in for an interview. So 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because like I wasn't finding anything. And I know what it was. I had plenty of work experience. Oh my God. Like, my resume was full. But because I was a trans woman at this point, no one wanted to hire me. So I was talking to a friend of mine. We've been friends for years from junior high. He's a gay guy. And he was like, bitch, go back down there. That's how he said it, literally. He's like, they told you you're going to get an interview. Go back down there and ask them why. Like, what's going on? So I got up one day, I got myself together, and I rode back to the place and, or drove back to the place. Yeah, honey. Honey, I drive, honey. Mama gotta get around, okay? Especially here in South Florida. But that's a whole nother story. So yeah, I walk in and the secretary looks at me like, what are you doing here? So she's like, may I help you? And I'm like, well, I go through the whole thing of like, I came a few weeks ago to take the test for employment. I passed, and you told me that I was going to be called in a week for interview, and no one ever called me. So she kind of gives me this look, and she's like, okay, have a seat. So then she comes out and she says, someone will meet with you. So I walk into this guy's office. He comes out like about 10 minutes later and waves to me to follow him. So I walk into his office and he closes the door. He was one of the personnel administrators there. And so I sit down and he sits down and he looks at me. And the first thing he says to me is, are those real? So I'm like, what? He's like, your tits, are they real? So I was like, kind of taken aback. I'm like, my God. But I needed a job, so I'm trying to keep my composure. So I just kind of laughed and I'm like, well, yeah, they're real, they're mine. I had to do some things to get them, but they're mine. So he laughs a little. So then, he's just talking about like random stuff. And then he says to me, I heard that you all give really good blowjobs. Oh my God. Did I just hear this man correctly? Uh, how do I handle this? I need a job. So I said to him, I said, well, that's what I've been told. And I kind of laughed a little bit. So he laughs. So then he's like talking about stuff, nothing related to the job. And then in the middle, I look at him and I'm like, well, like about the job. What? Oh, he interrupts me. He's like, oh, yeah, you're hired. He said, you'll come here on Monday at 9 a.m. for class. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay, thank you. I said, well, I hope that me being trans isn't a problem. No, we're an equal opportunity employer, et cetera, et cetera. Lord, if I only had a tape recorder, if I only had been able to record that, oh, I probably would be really rich right about now, right? But I didn't. And let me tell you, there's no reason for me to lie. This is the truth. I would take a lie detector on this. Okay? It is the truth. It's what happened. But I wish I had the damn tape recorder and I had taped it. So anyway, I'm excited. I'm like, wow, this is great, And so I show up on Monday. I'm on time for training. The first day of training, everything went smoothly. I had to use the ladies' room one time during the day. I went and used the ladies' room. And when I was in the ladies' room washing my hands, another employee came in. Not someone that was in my class, but someone that was already working at one of the accounts there. And so I just smiled and said hello. And she said hello. So anyway, I go home and I'm so happy. I'm like, oh my God, the first day of training went smooth. This is going to be fine. I'm going to be able to work here and be who I am, and it's going to all be okay. Well, honey, the next day was when all hell broke loose. Oh my God. So I'm sitting in class. Class hadn't began yet. And the instructor comes to the door. I love Gene. He always treated me pretty good. He was good to me. So he comes to the door and he calls me out. So he says, I just want to warn you, like, they're calling you to human resources to meet with the human resource director. He's like, I told them you were really natural with the way you carry yourself and everything. But he's like, I just wanted to give you a heads up. So I thanked him for that because at least I wasn't walking into like the lion's den not knowing what the hell was going on. So I walk into the office and he looks at me and he says, we have a problem. So I looked at him and I'm like, well, what? And he's like, well, on your written application, you put trans woman. On your computer application, you put female. And on your driver's license, it's male. So I said to him, I said, well, you know, on the computer, there's no box to click for trans woman. And I certainly wasn't going to put a male, because look at me. I said, and as far as the state of Florida driver's license, at that time, we weren't able to get our gender markers changed as easily as it is now. It's still a process, but we weren't able to even do that. I said, but you can see that I'm being honest about who I am, because on my written application, I wrote that I'm transgender. So he looks at me and he's like, well, I don't know how we're going to deal with you. You're going to be an experiment, because I just don't know how we're going to deal with this. And he says, I hope you are not here for any political statement. I'm like, political statement? I said, I'm here because I need a job. I need to keep a roof over my head and have food to eat. I'm here just like everyone else, working to support myself. So he's like, well, this is going to be trial and error. And he's like, and as far as the bathroom, I don't know what we're going to do about that, because you can't use the men's room because of your safety. And he's like, we don't want you using the ladies' room because you'll offend someone here. You'll offend the women here. So he's like, well, you'll just have to use the bathroom here. Now, mind you, that was all good and fine until I started on the floor, because my shift was swing shift or even later sometimes, and their bathroom closed at 4. So there were many hours that I sat at my desk with no bathroom to use. Okay, and that went on for a few years. But it was just so hard maneuvering through work. I swear, it's hard enough just going to a job every day, but try going to a job where you're treated like the pariah. You're being ostracized. People are looking at you like you're from another planet. Oh my God, it was horrible. I would walk into the lunchroom. Everyone would be talking, because it's lunchtime, and they'd be talking to their fellow coworkers, and eating lunch. And as soon as I walked in, like, everyone froze, and they'd be staring at me and like laughing and whispering, and this went on for a long time. And I'd come in the morning and I'd say good morning to like my coworkers, and no one would say good morning to me, or if maybe one or two, but like the majority of them weren't speaking to me. And I just was like, oh my God. And I just day in and day out was going, and dealing with that, and, trying to be friendly, trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, because I understand that gender is a very sensitive topic. And I know, that sometimes people have to kind of process. So I was trying to just, give people the benefit of the doubt, but be friendly, and hopefully people would see how I was conducting myself and working, the type of employee that I was, and my friendliness, and just me being a good, conscientious person. And I remember walking in one day, and it was a hard day. That morning, I sat in the car before I went into the job, and I had knots in my stomach. And I was like, God, I don't know how much longer I could take this. I just don't know how much longer I can take this. And I had knots in my stomach, and it took me everything to walk into that building. And I walked in, and I'm trying to like go forward and, put a smile on my face. And I went to my row where I was to get a computer. I usually sat like in the same row, or there was like a few rows that I kind of sat in, because with those call centers, you pretty much at that time you could pick a computer, and you just sign in with your ID. So when I walked into the row to sign on, there were people there, and I was like, good morning, and they all just kind of like looked at me and rolled their eyes. And I sat down and I signed on, and I put my headphones in, and I was there waiting for a call, and I put my head down, and I was like, God, help me. help me. I was just so tired of trying to be the nice one and try to connect, and people weren't allowing, they weren't even opening themselves up to just being decent with me. And tired of sitting at my desk for hours, not able to go use the bathroom, and walking through the building and people just gawking and laughing. And I was doing such a good job on the phone. I mean, I just still try to give it 100%. Just real. I've always been a customer service person. Like, I love to help people, and so I was giving it my all. And a call came through, and excellent customer service. I gave it 100%. And when I hung up from the call, someone came, and one of the managers came over and told me to sign off. So they take me in an office and they say, um, we've been listening to your calls and you are excellent. And we want you to work in a special department here. It's called membership rewards. Well, actually, the department that I worked in was membership rewards, but this department was called value. So membership rewards, high value, which meant that whenever a rich client called in or a famous client called in, their calls would be directed to our department, and we were more like concierge. It was very hands-on, very cushy, customer service to the triple X degree. I mean, that's the type of department, because they were like really considered high-end clients. And so they promoted me to that department, and I went over, got my stuff, and I walked over to the area where that was. And I have to say, the people there were they were more open with me. And as time went on, I got support. I mean, people saw who I was. This division, it was a different breed of people. So, it's funny, when I was at my very wit's end, and I was just crying out to God, like, I need something, like some light at the end of the tunnel. And it happened. It took me away from those people that were just bringing me down to at least an area where I felt like a little more, like I could navigate a little better. And so, oh honey, I spoke to all sorts of people. Oh my God. Remember Sally Jesse Raphael, the talk show host? I spoke to her. Will Smith, not him directly, but his personal assistant. Oh my God, so many people, I can't even think of them now. Who else? Oh, Tina Turner, Ike Turner, her ex-husband. I spoke to him about a month before he passed away. Tom Joyner, honey, it was those are the type of people we were dealing with. So anyway, still dealing with the bathroom situation. When I would have to leave my area, to go through the building, still dealing with all of the discrimination, but at least it was like a comfort zone, like somewhere in that horrible scenario where I had a little bit of solace. And I have to say, Florida is a right to work state, which means that an employer can fire you for no reason. And so I really have to give props to PRC and thank them for not just letting me go. As hard as it was, and as much hell as I went through there, because it was not easy, they could have just fired me. So I'm thankful. And I'm thankful to all of the people that were supportive of me. I mean, I would say there was still about 75% of the workplace that just hated me because of me being trans. And no matter how much I tried to connect, they had walls up. But there was that 25% that, did support me. And that was kind of my light at the end of the tunnel. And it helped to make things more tolerable so I could go to work and just survive. I needed a job, and I needed to, take care of myself, and I had to work. So it was it made things a little better. I tell you though, I've come a long way. I've been through so much. And when I think about those days, I've just come so far. I was able to get the therapy that I need, and I continue with therapy today. I was able to get the health care that I need. I had the blessing of having some um, reparative work or reconstructive surgery on my face so that it could make things more tolerable for me when I go out into society and my face wouldn't have to be so disfigured. I'm able to have continue with getting the health care that I need now. Um, my activism, humanitarian work, and advocacy work, the platform is just so much broader now. It's such a broader platform. I'm doing so much in that arena now. Um, so many things, so many things. And hey, I went from PRC to reality TV. Ah, that rhymes, right? PRC to reality TV. Oh, boy. I tell you, the things that we go through as people, and everyone has a journey. And I know no matter who you are, trans or not trans, you have your stories of struggle and strife. But a lot of times when I cry now, these aren't tears of sadness. They're tears of triumph because I know I truly have come a long way. Love, peace, and blessings, y'all.